Welcome to another installment of natural disasters. We all have heard of them and have seen them on TV. Some of us have even survived them. Earthquakes, hurricanes, mudslides, and tornadoes. The list of them is endless. Each has the power to devastate towns, cities, coastlines, or even entire countries. But there is one that is unparalleled in beauty, infamy, and pure awe-inspiring power. Enter the volcano.
Few landmarks are so instantly recognizable. Even the slopes of a volcano, extinct for tens of millions of years, can be identified almost immediately. Conical, tall, and majestic in form, they can be spotted often by even the untrained eye. In the background, we can see Mount Pisgah, which is near Cripple Creek, Colorado. Mount Pisgah is a 35-million-year-old extinct volcano that sits on the edge of a large caldera, which the town of Cripple Creek lies in the middle of. This caldera is approximately 24 square miles in size, evidence that there was an even once larger volcano right here on this site. Later volcanic activity is a direct cause of the mineral-rich ores that attracted the gold miners to this area in the late 1800s. Examples of extinct volcanoes, such as this one, can be seen throughout the Rocky Mountain region, from Mount Capullin in northern New Mexico to Huerfano Butte near Walsenburg, Colorado, to Yellowstone National Park, whose geologic activity is the direct result of the fact that it sits in a giant caldera of a supervolcano.
But behind the scenic beauty lies a great and terrible beast. Volcanoes have been responsible for tens of millions of deaths over the course of human existence, whether directly from the eruption or its effects on the climate. In the past century alone, at least 81,000 people have lost their lives due to volcanic activity. From lava flows to the dreaded lahar, these deadly, fire-spewing mountains are among some of the most feared places on Earth.
So, how do volcanoes work? Today, we're going to be visiting Tyler Fallsgraf, a geologist of some renown, at his home in Canyon City, Colorado, in order to answer that question. Now, I have to warn you, Tyler can be a bit eccentric at times, and sometimes his demonstrations go horribly awry. And, although he may be a bit out of sync with the status quo, he is an expert in his field. Let's see if he's home today.
Who are you? Why are you here? What do you want?
Yeah, what do you want?
I'm Travis with Natural Disasters. We were supposed to have an interview this afternoon with you.
Oh, yes. Stay here until dark.
So, Tyler, how does a volcano work?
I've prepared a few CGI aids to help me with my demonstration here.
CGI?
Yeah. Colored pencil, good highlighters, and industrial strength poster board.
Alrighty then.
Now, the crust of the Earth is broken up into several tectonic plates, massive chunks of land. They are floating on a semi-solid, semi-liquid, superheated ocean of rock that we call the mantle. A volcano is essentially an opening in the crust of the Earth. They're generally created by sometimes it's seismic activity at the edge of one of these plates, and sometimes it just heats up and punches through. Either way, once this superheated rock gets the pressure from above it, tremendous pressure, released, it melts into magma. This magma then rises up and ejects itself from the opening, called a vent, a volcanic vent, and into the air with varying degrees of force. Sometimes it oozes, sometimes it sprays thousands of feet into the air. The magma, once it reaches the surface, is called lava. This lava then cools into rock and forms a mound around the vent. This gives the volcano its trademark shape.
Is that a magic wand that you're using?
Yeah?
Okay, don't turn me into a frog, please.
Don't make me turn you into a magic frog.
So, Tyler, what different types of volcanoes are there?
There are many types of volcanoes, but probably the most famous and also the most destructive of volcanoes is the highly explosive stratovolcano, like Mount St. Helens. Its name comes from its composition, which consists mainly of alternating layers of lava, cinders, and ash, repeated over and over and over again. This layering effect is called stratification, thus the stratovolcano.
I noticed that you have a different pointer this time.
Yeah?
Do I need to leave?
No, why?
Okay, I just want to make sure there's not any bodies under the sink or anything.
No, they begin to smell under the sink. And nothing.
Alrighty then. The reason that these volcanoes are so extremely explosive stems from the makeup of their magma. Felsic magma, which is what stratovolcanoes generally emit, contains high concentrations of silica dioxide, otherwise known as silica. Silica can make up many different forms, many of which may surprise you. Quartz, for example, is pure silica in crystallized form. Many of these mountains around Canyon City contain great examples of quartz veins running through the surrounding metamorphic rock. Silica breaks down into smaller blocks, making up common beach sand, which can be made into another common substance, glass.
Silica is a very thick, sticky substance when molten. Ask any glassblower. It makes lava very viscous, like molasses. Another factor in a volcano's explosive power is its gas content. Many stratovolcanoes, like the one you see here, have high amounts of volcanic gases dissolved in their magma. These include carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. The viscous, silica-rich magma may occasionally seal up the vent and form a plug. As the pressure underneath the plug continues to increase, it might push up to form a lava dome. Like a cork in a bottle of champagne, this prevents the pressure from being released.
Tyler, are you using your dinner for a prop again?
Mom! As pressure builds, the sides of the volcano begin to bulge out, like some weird balloon. The rock of the volcano has incredible elastic abilities and can deform extremely far without fracturing. However, as more magma wells up from underneath, eventually something has to give way. This extremely scientifically accurate model, which is very high-tech, demonstrates how the volcano expands under pressure until something breaks.
Good.
Eventually. Sometime. Any moment now.
When the pressure finally wins, the results are spectacular. As the pressure is almost instantly released, several things happen at once. The gases in the magma, once kept dissolved by the compressive force, now can expand into their gaseous state. As they rise into the atmosphere at twice the speed of sound, the vacuum they create forces the magma to go along with them. Think of a champagne bottle. When shaken, the dissolved carbon dioxide, coincidentally one of the previously mentioned volcanic gases, forms small bubbles that rise to the top, building up pressure. When the cork is removed, the gases escapes, forming a low pressure area in their wake. This draws up the liquid into a fountain of champagne. However, there is a major difference between champagne and lava. Champagne can exist in the open air as a liquid. Lava, on the other hand, cools rapidly and quickly becomes solid. As the lava is slung into the air, it solidifies and is blasted apart into sand to house-sized pieces. The smaller chunks, called ash, are thrown high into the atmosphere, while the larger pieces, called blocks and bombs, are shot off in every direction. Soon, the column of material becomes denser than the air and rapidly descends down the side of the volcano. This red-hot wall of gas and ash can sweep down the slopes of a mountain at nearly 200 miles per hour, pummeling everything in its path. This is known as a pyroclastic flow, one of the deadliest products of a volcanic eruption.
Not all of the material of a pyroclastic eruption becomes part of the flow, however. Some plumes of ash can rise more than 10 miles into the atmosphere. The larger pieces of ash fall like snow for miles around, while the smaller particles stay suspended in the air. They can remain as such for a year or more. The reflective qualities of this ash can have serious consequences for the ecosystem. They can quite effectively block out much of the sunlight that keeps the planet warm. For example, the largest eruption of the last 1,000 years, Mount Tambora in Indonesia, blasted some 40 cubic kilometers of material into the air in 1815. The next year, 1816, was known as the year without a summer. The eruption caused one of the most feared weather phenomenon known to scientists, a nuclear winter. The freeze-out caused a global famine and may have killed more than 90,000 people.
Another threat stratovolcanoes pose is found on their high faces: glaciers. As the snow and ice is melted by the heat of the eruption, it runs down the mountain, picking up debris along the way. It rapidly turns into a volcanic mudflow known as a lahar. A lahar can tear down through a river valley at 80 miles an hour, smashing trees, bridges, houses, and anything else in its way. Once they do stop, anyone that survived the initial pummeling faces another problem. A lahar rapidly dries up and hardens like concrete, sticking anything caught in its path almost permanently in place. A person's only hope is that there is somebody nearby with a pick or a jackhammer.
The stratovolcano is certainly the most dangerous type of volcano. However, the others are no less spectacular in their eruptions. Let's look for a moment at the cinder cone volcano.
The next type of volcano that we will be discussing is the cinder cone volcano. A cinder cone volcano is essentially that, a cone of cinders. This volcano is formed by the ejection of still-hot lava into the air. It falls down back onto the ground in the form we call cinders, small volcanic rocks. These pile up in a mound around the vent, a loose mound of rubble. A good comparison to this would be an ant pile. As the ants dig into the ground, the material they excavate, they bring up to the surface and leave in a pile around the entrances to their tunnels. The further that they dig down, the larger the mound becomes. The shortest lived of volcanoes, but also one of the most common, cinder cones generally only have 1 or 2 eruptive periods before simply dying out. One of the most famous of cinder cones, Pu'u'o'o, is a parasitic vent on the flanks of Kilauea volcano on the Big Island of Hawaii. This vent has been the center of eruptions on Kilauea since 1983 and has been continuously active since.
A BB gun? Really?
Yeah, we use it for the cockroaches.
Ooh.
These volcanoes are famous for producing spectacular lava fountains, some of which may reach thousands of meters into the air. For example, this extremely high-tech and totally scientifically accurate model demonstrates how the lava flies high into the air and falls back down to Earth, forming a mound around the vent, this being your new cinder cone volcano. The lava fountain works off of the same principle as a pyroclastic eruption, but to a much less violent degree. As there is no plug to hold back any pressure, the lava simply flies up into the air and falls down. It may coalesce into a lava flow that makes its way down the side of the mountain and onto the surrounding landscape, provided that enough material remains molten.
This brings us to the last of the major types of volcano, the shield volcano. These are the largest of the volcanoes. The Hawaiian Islands are all made of active or extinct shield volcanoes, including Kilauea, Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, Hualaiai, and Kohala of the Big Island.
Shield volcanoes have very hot fluid magma. It usually oozes out of the vent and forms a flow. This makes for a low profile, gentle shaped cone, such as this model demonstrates. It resembles a warrior's shield, from whence it gets its name. Again, with our very high-tech, extremely scientifically accurate model, we can get an idea of how lava may come out of the vent and flow down the side of the volcano. As this model shows, the lava is very fluid and thus able to travel very far before cooling and solidifying. It would be very unwise for the unwary geologist to step into one of the streams of lava. Ah! The Hawaiian and Galapagos volcanoes, all shield volcanoes by the way, formed over a hot spot in the ocean's crust. This is an area where a mantle plume punches up through the overlying rock. As the mantle plume advances and recedes, the plate continues to move over it in a certain direction. This is why there is a chain of islands in Hawaii, or the Galapagos Islands. Hawaiian lava is mafic and ultramafic, which means that it is low in silica content, but very high in iron and magnesium. This makes for a runny, low-gas lava. It comes in two forms, A'a and Pahoehoe. A'a lava is extruded at a relatively cool temperature, and it forms blocky, rough, and sharp lava flows. In fact, the name A'a comes from the sound one makes when walking barefoot over one of these cooled flows.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Allow me to demonstrate.
Ooh, ah, ee, ah, ooh.
Alrighty then, good demonstration.
Conversely, Pahoehoe lava is extruded at a very high temperature, and it is very fluid, almost runny, in fact. It forms a smooth, ropey surface that is much more pleasant to walk on than A'a.
Are you feeling a bit potassium deficient?
No, this is for the monkeys.
Shield volcanoes can remain active for millions of years, provided that their magma source remains. This means that they can grow to incredible sizes, possibly tens or hundreds of kilometers in diameter. Mauna Kea on Hawaii is well over 14,000 feet above sea level, but when combined with its underwater height, it reaches 33,100 feet from its base. This dwarfs even Mount Everest, the world's highest peak. These mountains are truly behemoths.
Volcanoes are among the most destructive forces on Earth, their power originating miles below our feet, supplied from the raging inferno. Beautiful, awesome, and deadly, they will forever hold a place of fear and intrigue in our hearts. Their majestic slopes will always have an air of mystery and pose questions to those who dare to try to answer them. One thing is for certain, though, the dangers they pose should never be outshone by their grandeur. They are always waiting to erupt again. Commonly referred to as silica. Silica
You can see here have high amounts of volcanic gases in their magma. These gases include
Don't try to add
cinders. A good comparison.
majestic slopes. inspire mystery, and pose questions for those who dare. Fear and intrigue in our hearts. Their tall, majestic slopes